yeah, result context, interval ID, and the result content. It's result name is this is result name, and this is result context equals online. It's like that. But you'll display them all? I think so, basically. So right now, kind of what I'm doing is, for every permutation, I would have another database call. So I would get, mission 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. going down the line. So, and these are all unique rows, so there's not going to be any conflicts between the rows. So I'm not really sure, but if, if there's some way to have a select statement which, returned all the rows with multiple, like if we could do all this stuff instead of as, one isolated call, it would be, all of these specified like that. I'm not sure how a group by would work. Like, so I mean, you could do like if you did if you do group by, like I did group by interval ID, does the limit get enforced for each? Is there a way to specify a limit internally? I thought the limit only works for like the end of it. So if we group by interval ID or something, I don't know. I don't really. The things I've seen with like group by is like I want to know how many results for a specific thing. Yeah, so I wasn't seeing anything in the language that actually does what I wanted, so I'm kind of stuck with these single calls, and that's where the 4,000 calls comes from. And what I'm thinking about is, there are 4,000 calls, and there is an expense per call, which you would expect to be about 1 millisecond or something like that. And 4,000 times, 1 millisecond is we're basically got 4 seconds of latency for the fetch, regardless of if everything is free and writing to a network and all that. So it's kind of, we're losing 4 seconds. So anyway, I think I was just going to stick with what I was doing, which is do all 4,000. You want a stat table? Well, that's what I got for it. Because the only other thing I could think about would be like creating a transaction, like creating a temporary table and then like selecting stuff into that temporary table and then reading that out or something. You want a stat table that's already sorted, limited, etc. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I'm building with the cache stuff there. And kind of what I was talking about, where I'd have a stat server that would go create all the high score tables otherwise. And I don't really want to write a stat server. I want to keep it all in line if I can. So I'm erring towards that sort of system. How big is the data supposed to be? Well, at some point here, it's not necessarily the data that I'm worried about. It's just the number of database calls and everything else. And the stats table right now has everybody's stats for all the intervals. So if you played during a specific week on a specific mission, you are going to have a result in that table. So if we had, 1 million monthly active users or something for that month, we would expect at least like 2 or 3 missions in there. So we'd have like 3 million rows in the month 5 results thing or whatever, right? So, because what I'd like to be able to do is not just have a pre-built high score table. I would also like to be able to do things like you can fetch your friend's high score from that interval. So for that week that you're looking at, you could see, oh, Adam got, bronze on that mission and I got better than that. And that's exactly what I'm saying is I can't consolidate the top 100 because I would like to have, the rest of it. So it's not about the data size, really. It's about the number of permutations and the calls that I have to do to just cache it. So I could have a top 100 table, which is a separate thing, which is a pre-made list of that. But I would still have the issue of the current list, which would have to have like some stats thing, which is regularly kicking off every 30 minutes, and for every mission. So it'd be about 300 times 6 different things. So we'd still have around 200, like 2,000 calls we'd have to do. So it's still an issue. So let's give it a 10-minute cache time. Well, they still got to load it from somewhere, right? And, I could load the entire table, I guess, or whatever, but I'm just not going to do that. Because I don't need to. I'll just make it so that the scores don't always update immediately. I'll just put it on a 10-minute timer and just not worry about it, and that's fine. Because I can just dial back these things in their aggressiveness, and the doing 4,000 calls doesn't matter over 10 minutes. It's like, it'll load its stuff up there, and that's not going to be a problem. I can add extra zeros to my orders of magnitude support just by saying instead of every 10 seconds, we'll just update every 10 minutes. And it's like, okay, well, for leaderboards it'll update every hour. Who gives a shit? And that's fine. All right, cool, Gary Unix. Thanks for sticking around and for your input and creativity. And have a good night, sir. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is I want to make kind of the same things. Thank you for following as well. I won't always be doing database things though, so. But at least for now. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to grab the, so this will be stats, user, I think result history, yeah. So this will be fetch result leaderboard for a specific result name and result context. It's pretty similar to what we were doing before, so I'll just copy this as a thing. So this is fetch result leaderboard. Result context, result name. Okay, select star from get user result history declaration where user result history var names. So this is going to be result context, interval ID, and result name. We're going to have an issue here where the missions are going to be defined by the game and game data that needs to be updated, so I'm going to have to get a list of missions. So this is going to be a unique list of result names for this thing. I don't know what the result names are going to be. So probably what I'm going to have to do is part of this cache is also going to do a group by result name and get every unique mission name out of it, that should be pretty cheap, so that's fine. Alright, so this is going to be user result history. Okay, so we got that guy rolling. And then we'll want to do, again, our get leaderboard 4 in this guy. And this will be get result leaderboard 4. And we're going to want to change this one to be get stat leaderboard. Alright, so this will be result context, result name, alright, so result context, result name. Max leaderboard stat users and max leaderboard result users. Set it to 20 to start with. Just do it. Okay. So get our result leaderboard. Why do we have this here? We can remove view. So get the game cache. Fetch, this will be result leaderboard. This will be result context, result name. So we get a result here. Result context, result name. Result history again. User, is it results that? User leaderboard result. Okay, so this will populate and do what we need it to do. So, excellent. We'll basically do the exact same thing for the others. Anyway, I will be right back after I do a few things. Alright, I will be right back. Alright, I have returned. So basically the fetch interval stuff, it should do what we want it to do. So I just need to make sure I didn't fat finger something stupid here. Yeah, alright. So inner stat, we have stat value. We also need to grab the result. And the duration. So the reason I added to results a result and duration and stat value is because they're different. Okay, we might have extra information. So basically, like a result would be this person got 300 scores in 30 minutes or something. And what'd be interesting is if some of these challenges are like, if you need to pop a fat sack up into the air over and over again, and when you miss, it resets the counter. So it basically be, oh, okay, you got bronze because you only got 100. But if somebody's sitting there literally and it's for 30 damn minutes or something and keeps it up there and the thing goes to 1,000, it would be nice in the leaderboard to be able to see that and just be like, oh, this guy got, platinum tier fat sack bouncing, but he literally sat there for 2 days, and you're just like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's a leaderboard that I don't want to, I don't want to do. I don't want it. Or it might be like something completely bullshit, like he scored 5,000 points in 0 seconds, and you're like, that's probably wrong. Somebody's hacking their client. Is there anything else? So result context, result name, stat values, leaderboard results. Okay. Let's go over it again. So we set our key, we get now, get our lock for results locker, results map, leaderboard, get the game cache, result leaderboard from mem cache. If we have an error, we just log it. We'll snag the object. If the object is too old, we won't use it. Otherwise, if it is available, we'll use it and return it. We'll also put it in our local results. Okay, we're going to fetch our result leaderboard based on all of these pieces of information. If it fails, we'll return null. We will, if our past interval is null, we will load our interval from the database so that we have that information. We will then create our leaderboard object. We set our interval number, stat context, stat name. These should probably be result context and result name. We then have our stats here. Why don't we just call this results? We set the interval, the context, the name. We then create the stats array and we fill it out. We set the account ID, the value, result, duration. All right, yeah, that looks correct. So let's cache our stuff. Hello, Kinto456. I am working on the results leaderboards at the moment, which is for this week, how many people have completed mission 1 and what were their best results. Such as if we have missions where there's like tiers, like you were able to win and you won in 10 seconds. Excellent. You'll get high score on the leaderboard. There are missions now. Surprise! Is all client data trusted? No, it is not. So basically, we'll see with how much we trust the client data, but there's definitely going to be, stuff. Basically, the trust on the client is we've got different contexts. So like a result goes into a specific context. So that context would be like offline or online. So if you were playing against an official server, the official servers can report stats for the online context, but the offline context, I think, will be just like trusting the client on some of that stuff. And we might have some reasonable values, for like sanity checking. But, it's basically going to be if somebody hacks their client and says they won the mission with 1 million points and all that stuff, at some point there, unless we're actually running our own server and having them do that, you're going to have to trust the client at some point for that, right? Because it's just too expensive to not. Because otherwise we have to have, for every person online, we have to either rerun a simulation, hash sum or some shit on it, and verify it, which is going to be, more money and systems and time for us to write it. Or, we have to do other things. So most likely, we will trust the client with a little bit of sanity checking with some permission rules which we implement. But it's mainly going to be that we have different intervals that I think that will make that not so much of a problem, such as there will be an all-time high score, there will be a monthly high score, there will be a weekly and maybe a daily high score. So the chances, like if somebody goes and hacks their client, to get the all-time high score, we might have a bit more, like sanity checking sorts of stuff where, like I check the high score tables a little bit and they're like, all right, this user's obviously full of shit, and like can remove some of that and write some special rules for the high score table insert. But for like weekly and monthly and seasonal or whatever, I don't know, well, it'll roll over. So it's like, good job, you hacked the offline context. So I'm kind of more of the opinion of if somebody's going to hack the game, their client, and report, that they finished a level 1 second faster than somebody else, it's kind of like other high scores, right? Yeah, exactly. But if scores are physically possible, you'd have to actually like boot up that version of the game at that time and see if it's reasonable. And so it may be that for actual high scores that we actually care about, do the same thing that you do with, global people. Just like, all right, so if you're the best brack and sack player of all time, submit the video of you doing it. Like, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so the other thing, like we got the latest stat intervals, we're also going to need the group by stuff. So we're going to want the for every interval we want to go through and snag the result names. Yeah, and we'll probably, put some sanity checks on things, but the first implementation, I don't think we're going to worry too much about it. Because, the game has to be popular, and we can always go scrub bullshit data out of there, you know, and fix that later. So we'll see. But if anything marked with online is specifically reported by the official servers, so people will know. A build system to deal with Linux for a school assignment? I mean, if that's what you feel like doing, then it's all fine. All right. For every interval, we need to grab the result names. So I want to do this. All right. So we need statsdb dot what get user result history. Group by result name. Okay, so select from this where, and we want to set our interval ID. This is interval ID. So that should be it. Alright, so we're going to select the result name. So this is going to be an array list of strings. So result set, look at and I think this will work. I forget exactly the syntax for fetching from a result set on this thing. Alright, so we need to set our callable statements to interval ID. Alright, This is call to fetch all result names for a and interval ID. You wonder what code with comic book illustrations would look like? Code with comic book illustrations? Like, if you were actually writing code and then the code was in kind of the form of like big illuminated panels and all sorts of crap. Or are you talking about if there was a comic book about like somebody writing code? Kind of like how they have, you know, like horrible anime characters that, you know, type with one hand and stupid crap like that. Oh, if they had a nice illustrated how to code learning thing. They could try. I mean, pretty much all coding is just you're dealing with, like, the computer is the dumbest thing on the planet. It literally does exactly what you do, what you tell it to, and it knows absolutely nothing. So the entire, like, if you're in kindergarten, you may have gotten the like writing assignment, or I don't know. I guess maybe kindergarten doesn't have writing assignments. Usually you're learning how to read. Add fireworks for every key press. Oh Jesus. Blueprints are the comic books of code, something like that. But if you had that writing assignment in elementary school, I think the one that I remember is an alien like visits you in your kitchen and wants to know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And this alien only does exactly what you tell it. So write instructions for the alien to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it was like, you know, like you have to, you know, like get a knife, you know, and it's like, oh, the teacher would be like, no, like it doesn't know what a knife is. It doesn't know where to get one. It doesn't know which drawer in your kitchen it needs to be in. So you have to describe everything in perfect detail in this to, you know, explain to the alien how to make the sandwich. And kind of the moral of that story is if an alien crash lands and asks you to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in his kitchen, just kill the alien, make yourself a sandwich, eat it, and forget that he exists. Yeah, exactly. What's a drawer? It was a stupid assignment because it's just a way for your teacher just to tell you you're wrong over and over again because there's no right answer because you have to have a common language and it's just stupid. Okay, so we've got our result contexts. Most of the bulls say yes or no. It's true. Alright, so go through for every result context, and we're going to do for every string result name in namesres.get object. We're going to call fetch, I believe, results leaderboard, which will have our result context. We'll have our interval ID. We'll have our result name. This is not correct. What is the name of this function? It is get result leaderboard 4. Context, interval ID, result name, and then interval. So here's our result leaderboard. Coding in Visual Studio 2017. No, this is Eclipse. I use Eclipse for Java stuff, and for our Unreal project, we're using Visual Studio 2015 Community. So, I don't know, I think it's probably pretty common in games that you basically pick a Visual Studio version at the beginning of your project, and usually you never update it throughout the entirety, because all your dependencies, like Chromium and whatever, your installer, your launcher patcher, everything in your whole project depends on Visual Studio runtime components and crap like that. So, Eclipse in 2018. See, I don't see why people hate Eclipse so much. Like, I don't install any plugins, though. Like, people install plugins in Eclipse and then wonder why shit explodes. And it's just like, well, the plugins are garbage. The only plugin I have is like the Perforce plugin, and even that's questionable. There's some pretty good reasons for, yeah, Eclipse is awful. What's wrong with it? I know a lot of people like IntelliJ and other shit, but I mean, it's just writing code in Java. It does what it does. I haven't had problems with it, so. But the reason why we would code stuff in Java and C++, or why you would code stuff in Python and C++, or anything, is because certain languages are better for certain tasks. So like C++ is better. You're forced to use Eclipse for C++. All right, yeah, that's what the fuck? No, don't do that. It's a horrible plan. Basically, C++ is very good for lower level applications where things need to be specific, and it compiles to native code for your platform, so it's going to be faster and it's going to do exactly what you want. The problem with C++ for some applications, like, yeah, if you're fucking around with like project settings and stuff like that with Eclipse, just shoot yourself in the face, because it's not gonna, like, don't do that. But for like, the reason we use Java on our servers is because it's more important for our servers to stay running in the face of errors. So if you have a C++ server, that C++ server, if it has a crash bug or a bug that you didn't handle properly, it's going to crash and die. So it's good for game servers, because if there's a problem with your game, you need to know about it, you need to fix it, and you need the performance for the game. So C++ servers for game servers, yes. For a backend server that's dealing with a database and all sorts of other stuff, it's usually more important that that system keeps running in the face of errors. So a language like Java or like Python, or using microservices with C or something like that, where, you know, the microservice can die and it doesn't matter. You just spin up another one and it just doesn't, who gives a damn? And it's also very important for servers to be able to you should be able to run it on anything. So like, I'm running on a Windows desktop here, but it runs on Linux out there. And one of the good things about like Java or Python or, you know, other things is you can kind of just run those on anything, and as long as you got the right runtime, you're good. You know, performance isn't going to be as amazing, but it does it. Also, yeah, so cross-platform is a lot nicer. And a lot of people hate Java and would look at me writing a server in Java and be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why don't you just write C#? Why don't you write it in Python? Why don't you write it in Erlang? Why don't you write it in anything but Java? You've goddamn idiot. Where you work at Amazon? And like, yeah, but I wrote Java before that. Your prof got on the Eclipse train. Get a new prof. The reason that the backend server here is in Java is mainly because my expertise, like I've written tons of Java servers, and when people say they hate Java, I agree with them. Java developers are assholes and do horrible things with Java. Like if I search for interface, like in my whole project, like I don't use interfaces for hardly anything. So like even just searching for interface, like none of these are actual interfaces, except for a few things. But even then, but one of the big patterns that people use in Java is C++ is a modern language too. It's got new stuff all the time. How to build a whole game engine with Java only. Java's, yeah, also with Java you don't have to worry about your memory management as much, which is a lie, a goddamn dirty lie, but it's true. I like how I loaded my leaderboard here, and I did absolutely nothing with it. It's actually just this. Yeah, a lot of people who write Java code write it in such a way that it's just the worst crap on the planet. Like, it's amazing just how bad people abuse Java. What am I doing? I don't need to put this in anywhere because it's already in there. All right. Yeah. Get result leaderboard will get all the results and cache them, so we're good to go. So this will grab everything. Yeah, but a lot of people who write Java code, what they do is they use a lot of just enterprise design patterns that are absolutely stupid. Just, it's incredible. The amount of design patterns that people in Java for Java programming use that just, it's just nuts. Like, I'll just Google this, like, Java ORM call stack and just look up, images of call stacks. So like here's a good image. This this is a call stack from somebody's amazingly put together Java web server thing, right? So it's a call stack is basically, this is how many functions that your business logic is actually going through your program. It's how deep it is in actual code. So whenever you write a function, you go into another function, and like how many functions does it actually go into before it's just, something like this where it's like, okay, just finally, there's code, done. Because functions are just going deeper and deeper. It's like Inception. You're just like, we have to go into the 4th level dream world. For Java, one of the big patterns is to like stitch together all these open source frameworks that have just generic interfaces for everything. I'm very subtly, they tend to over-engineer, and it's just the most insane thing. So like these 15 call stack lines are all just your web server. Like this is a simple hello world call. This is a server. You go to the website, you type in the URL, and it just comes back and says hello. And that's it. So in order to do that, they have all this processing and interceptors and all this shit for your actual, like, okay, we finally have an HTTP request. So it looks like it's just the architecture is different. It's the architecture and how people use it kind of is what makes up a language. And all this stuff, and literally the only piece of code that this developer wrote is this one thing here, this one line, where it actually says like return hello world. Like just, that's it, just return hello world. And all the rest of this shit, so you'll write, like one line of code within this massive framework, and then you'll wonder why it doesn't work or why it's slow and just so many people do that sort of crap. And they're like, well, Java's slow. It'd be like, well, you're using 15 different frameworks that all have to work together that speak different languages. You're screwed. So yeah, I program a lot of stuff in Java, but I also absolutely hate Java programmers. Okay, so we have all of our actual leaderboards set up, good to go, awesome. So let's do things. Yeah, exactly. Imagine that you, every single one of those functions was a person doing a small task and handing like a thing off to somebody else. So like it's an assembly line for building a car. So you have one dude that like slaps the wheels on, and the next guy that, puts the cup holders in or something, right? Those are the only two parts of a car. So you have like all these people doing all this stuff. And every single time they have to hand something off to the next person, even if they're doing something trivial, just the process of handing shit off means it's going to take fucking forever. Which makes sense when you're doing something like building a car, but it's how a call stack works is not like an assembly line where every, assembly line is like one thing after the other in order. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But with like a call stack, it goes deeper. So it's like the first person at the start of the assembly line has to wait for that person all the way at the guy who's, putting the last coat of paint on. He has to wait until that guy who puts the last coat of paint on, and everybody like turns around and says to the previous guy, he's like, all right, cool, here's the finished car back. And they just like hand the car all the way back, this line of 500 people, all the way back to the first guy, who then drives it off the lot and then comes back with you know, a block of steel and was like, let's make the next car. Yeah, all that code is executed in, it's not in parallel, it's one series of instructions all the way down. But how a computer works is it has to keep track of where it is with memory. So it's all memory that has to be done there. So that's kind of how call stacks are. Is it's just a big bunch of memory that you have to return stuff off of and everything. So it's like a stack of papers on your desk, right? If somebody pushes, keeps putting pieces of paper on your desk, eventually your desk is going to collapse and, you're not going to be able to do any work. So what you want to be able to do is, grab a piece of paper, do the thing, and then hand it off and go do the next one. That's why it's called a stack. It's true. Because it's a stack. Anyway, so result contexts, result names, and this is going to be max leaderboard result context. And result names. Default leaderboard stat users.